In Nigeria. Good morning, Abuja. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. Apologies for starting 2 minutes late, but it's still a happy situation for us in Nigeria, considering that Nigerians are still basking in the euphoria of getting through the semi-finals in the AFCON. So it is a beautiful situation going on out there. We know how Nigerians can be when they want to go all petty. So we've seen a lot of things happening on social media. But apart from that, of course, there is the cost of living, which has been rising, which we would say, the AFCON is something that has at least just uplifted Nigerian spirit. But that is something, of course, the government needs to look at in order to move forward, because people are really suffering when it comes to the cost of commodities in the market. Anyways, I am Sumaya Abubakar. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have interesting 2 hours package for you this morning, so please do stick with us. And right now, we would head on to to bring you the headlines for today. The first one here says that disaster, that's fire, guts, Anambra local government secretariat. Insecurity, army rescues 18 female kidnapped victims in Katsina State. And subsidy, NLC, TUC issues 14-day strike notice, and that's due to the hardship in the country. And now the details. The Secretariat of Dunukofia local government area in Ukpo, Anambra State, has been gutted by fire. The fire outbreak, which occurred on Wednesday evening, was said to have emanated from a bushfire close to the Secretariat. A resident of the area, Mr. Frank Okoli, said the fire lasted hours, noting that it would have destroyed a lot of property in the Secretariat, but for the intervention of the firefighters from the Anambra State Fire Service. He said a fire truck and firefighters were deployed to the scene, adding that the fire was caused by bush burning. Agbili further stated that during the firefighting operation, they were able to control and extinguish the fire and prevent it from destroying a lot of things at the local government secretariat. A sad situation there. I mean, while we're in secondary school, there was always warning of bush burning, how it can get. And we all know it's a dry season. So definitely there would be, a lot of wind to carry that fire. And it's really a sad situation. But, grateful that no life was lost on that one. Now, moving on, we have troops of the Nigerian army on Wednesday succeeded in rescuing 18 female kidnapped victims from their captors and handed them over to the Katsina State government. This is coming days after 55 wedding guests who were said to be escorting a bride home along the Damari town in Sabwa local government area of the state were kidnapped by suspected bandits. The brigade commander, 17th Brigade of the Nigerian Army Katsina, Brigadier General Oluremi Fadairo, said that the soldiers took a rescue operation to the bandits' enclaves at Entomaki and Dang Ali Forest. He explained that the troops successfully engaged the terrorists in a gun battle, after which they successfully rescued the victims. Fadairo then handed over the victims to the State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Dr. Nasiru Muazu. He stressed the readiness of the Nigerian Army to continue to work for the restoration of permanent peace in the state. The commander charged the personnel under the brigade to sustain such rescue operations to ensure that all other kidnapped victims were freed. Responding, Muazu restated the maximum commitment of the government to restore permanent peace in the state. He therefore advised the bandits, kidnappers, and other criminals to repent immediately or face a myriad of unpalatable consequences. I mean, will they really repent though? They just need to face the consequences. They have gone really far. Insecurity is really eating deep. Moving on away from the insecurity issues to the hardship in the country, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of the Nigerian counterparts have issued a 14-day nationwide strike notice to the federal government over the failure of the Bola Tinubu-led government to implement the agreements reached on October 2nd, 2023 following the removal of fuel subsidy on premium motor spirits known as petrol. Now, leaders of the NLC and TUC have said that despite organized labor's efforts to ensure industrial peace, the government seems unperturbed by the mass suffering and hardship across the country. The October 2nd agreement was focused on addressing the massive suffering and the general harsh socio-economic consequences of the ill-conceived and ill-executed IMF and World Bank-induced hike in the price of PMS and the devaluation of the Naira. These dual policies have had, as we predicted, dark economic consequences for the masses and workers of Nigeria, the statement by the union said on Thursday. Effective February 9th, among others, the two labor unions said, constrained by the development and recognizing the urgency of the situation and imperative of ensuring the protection and defense of the rights and dignity of Nigerian workers and citizens, the NLC and the TUC hereby issue a stern ultimatum to the federal government to honor their part of the understanding within 14 days from tomorrow, the 9th day of February 2024, which is today. The federal government had, among other things, promised the implementation of a 35,000 Naira minimum wage award for civil servants, which, however, has not been paid up to date, which is something, that would have to see what the government would react, to this ultimatum given to them. But, the union, that's the NLC and the TUC, are the mouthpiece of the workers and citizens of the country. So we hope that the federal government at least react to this positively. Now, moving on, let's bring you the packages that we have for you this morning. Amidst the mounting economic hardship in the country, the Arewa Initiative for the Defense and Promotion of Democracy has appealed to Nigerians to refrain from protesting. The group made the appeal after a review of recent developments in the country amidst the surge in the cost of living. Habibat Ajayi reports.
As dissatisfaction brews over the escalating cost of living fueled by fuel subsidy removal and the devaluation of Naira, protests erupted in some parts of the nation. These protests may believe, if not arrested, through deliberate policies aimed at easing the cost of living, may degenerate into chaos. It is in response to the above that a coalition of pro-democracy groups is employing Nigerians to restrain from further demonstrations, asserting that the federal government is actively working to alleviate the economic burden on Nigerians.
We have no any other country than Nigeria. We don't want to tear Nigeria in pieces. We are not holding brief for the government. But what we are saying is we are advising the government to come strongly into the situations and relieve the present challenges in the nations.
While acknowledging the efforts of the federal government, the group is calling for an enhanced strategy to address the underlying causes of the economic downturn.
We are telling the president to kindly go to him by himself to monitor the repairs of the refineries in Warri, Port Harcourt and Kaduna, because that is the grassroots of the problems of the oil in Nigeria.
Despite prevailing challenges, Nigerians are encouraged to maintain hope and rally behind the current administration in its quest for transformative national progress. Habibat Ajayi, Trust TV News, Abuja.
In Borno State, the governor, Professor Babagana Umara Zulum, has distributed 100 million naira of food and wrappers to women and widows in Damasak of Mobar Local Government Council. The governor also distributed food palliative to over 3,000 returnees from Niger Republic. Trust TV's Beatrice Kurutsi has more.
Stakeholders in Bayelsa State call on residents to stop bush burning for the safety of the people.
More than 20,000 of the women comprising widows, housewives and IDPs benefited from the 100 million naira cash and wrappers shared in Damasak community. The governor also visited Government Secondary School Damasak and Zanna Umar T Primary School for assessment, where he approved 10 units of housing estates for teachers and 50,000 naira cash support. He also directed the biometric data capture of civil servants in the state, stressing that the exercise should be concluded before the end of February.
I recently commented, provide another family to the parents. Women will identify 2 police stations and they'll bring PMF and subsidize the cost of PMS to the farmers so that they'll buy petrol, then use it in the general so that they'll also irrigate the farmers. This is new. The second issue is that women will also procure solar water plants. In addition to this, we'll also install drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation systems in this country. By and large, we have some initiatives to support the economy. We are also discussing with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture food security under President Tinubu to see how we should push in the people, especially the youth.
Meanwhile, the governor also distributed food palliatives to 3,847 returnees from Niger Republic. Governor Zulum said he has remained committed to improving the quality of lives of the citizens. Bitrus Kuruti, Trust TV News, Maiduguri.
It's really, beautiful when you see at least state government make efforts to cushion the effect, for the residents of their states. And we hope that other governors, take the initiative, because it cannot be the federal government alone. We need to hold other people accountable. There is a lot of steps before it gets to the federal government. All right, moving on from Borno State, residents of Yanagwa, the Bayelsa state capital, are lamenting over the indiscriminate bush burning in the state capital. They said burning of bushes during the Harmattan is giving them discomfort, like difficulty in breathing, sight, changing of the atmosphere, and even causes of the fire outbreak. Friday, Ebi Mobowe Peter reports.
Stakeholders in Bayelsa State call on residents to stop bush burning for the safety of the people.
Everybody is crying. As I'm talking to you now, I'm feeling the pepperish situation in my nose, and my eyes are also running water. But now you might not be able to see it. To speak now, we have stepped into February. The Harmattan has finally surfaced. So we want to plead with our dwellers, those who are residing in Bayelsa State and beyond, that burning of bush is not really too good. There are so many dangers that impose. Those of us who are living should try to leave the bush burning and see how we can help ourselves, because when this bush burning keep coming, the smoke that we inhale is a threat to our lungs, it's a threat to our health, and it's a threat to the society.
The people where we get as Bayelsans to understand that if you burn bush for night, for especially this Harmattan period, and they there to monitor the bush, fire outbreak they happen. And when the fire outbreak happen, they'll come to blame devil. So once they burn bush, they try to contract everybody to the inside smoke. Now they make sometimes you go wake up early morning, you know they see person. The fog date, once the weather don't clear, breeze go come they blow the fog then out. If not, if you wake up around 4 in the morning, you can't look outside, they see anywhere. Because of the people they burn bush for night.
Some residents said people ignorantly set fire indiscriminately without considering the health, economic and agricultural implications. They call on the government to go on a massive sensitization to stop bush burning.
When you now burn bush, the atmosphere is polluted, and you can see the magnitude of pollution that's ongoing. Because if you burn a piece of land in Agodaman, it will definitely get a place like a Keki and Dan Minahua. Why? Because there are no boundaries in the atmosphere. So when a pollution is taking place, when atmospheric pollution is taking place, it becomes very massive, but it's spread like a wildfire. So it is very unfortunate where we find ourselves that bush burning has become something that is now almost becoming a norm every dry season. And we are becoming victims to respiratory diseases. We are becoming victims to fogginess. they are becoming victim to business. In fact, a lot of this goes wrong. Because more particularly the respiratory aspect of it. People are being choked. The quality of the air is being reduced for human consumption and animals. So it has health implications, it has agricultural implications, and it has economic implications. So it's sadly that people are indulging in bush burning indiscriminately.
Premises of some companies are exposed to indiscriminate bush burning within the state. From Yanagwa, Friday, Ibmobowe Peter, Trust TV News, Yanagwa.
Right, we need to be extra cautious, of course, when it comes to bush burning. We know how, it causes, especially in the dry season. Away from that, the victory of the Super Eagles against the Bafana Bafana of South Africa has continued to generate reactions among Nigerians, both home and abroad. In Imo State, the southeastern part of Nigeria, the residents are saying the victory is a source of joy, which has in no small measure availed them from some sort of relief from the numerous challenges that they are faced with. Trust TV's Ajibade Praise tells us more.
It is no doubt that football has a way of uniting Nigerians, especially when the country's national team is playing. The victory against South Africa is one of such moments, and every citizen of the country are glad over the outcome. According to them, the victory gave them a reason to rejoice despite the present predicament they face as a result of economic hardship in the country.
But I know that with the squad Nigeria have put in place, especially from our defense and the front, that's that of Osime, Simon and Lukman, and I believe that Nigeria will put up a surprise. So I'm optimistic, very, very optimistic that Nigeria will win.
Because I know some victory yesterday, though the first half we had somehow discouraged because our midfielder was somehow porous. But in the second half, when the coach did some substitution and we get back into the game, and the game went very well.
Speaking further, they expressed confidence that Nigeria will lift the trophy while urging the team to continue with the spirit of patriotism and unity.
They should be focused. I want them to be focused. It is not yet over until they lay their hands on that trophy. Until William Truss Ekon or Ahmed Musa lift that trophy. Until they shouldn't relax. They shouldn't underrate the Ivorians.
Yes, Nigeria will win because God of War is not a threat to Nigeria. We have done it before and we're still going to do it again.
And my advice is that they've been playing the game as a team. They should continue in that unity. Whoever has scored, the glory comes back to Nigeria. Let them work as a team and ensure that they come back with the trophy.
While they await the finals on Sunday, when Nigeria will face Ivory Coast, the host country, the people are hopeful that the Super Eagles will again give them yet another bigger reasons to smile. Ajibade Praise, Trust TV News, Owerri.
Like I said from the beginning of the show, Nigerians are still basking in the euphoria of, reaching the finals on the AFCON. All right, of course, with that, this is the package that we have for you at this hour. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it will be time for our first discussion, which is about something that is trending on social media again. So stay with us. Welcome back to Daybreak, coming to you live from our studio in the nation's capital, Abuja. Before we went on a break, I told you about things that has emanated response. A lot of people have been talking about this thing on social media with different reactions and expectations of what the outcome would be. Now, the federal government has renewed the suspension of commercial flights from Niger Republic to Nigeria and from Nigeria to the nation's northern neighboring country by the Economic Community of West African States resolution. This resolution was put forth by ECOWAS in response to the event of the Niger Republic on July 26, 2023, when the democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum was ousted in a coup and replaced by the military junta led by General Abdurrahmani Tichani. On the other hand, the West African Foreign Ministries held an emergency meeting on Thursday in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, to discuss the political crisis in Senegal and disputes with military rulers in 3 other member states. The extraordinary session of the Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS, follows President Macky Sall's sudden decision to delay elections in Senegal, just a week after Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger declared that they were quitting the bloc. Let's not forget there is also Guinea on that list. Now, ECOWAS has urged Senegal, one of its most stable member states, to return to its election timetable, but critics have already questioned the group's sway over increasingly defiant member states. We have with us a retired diplomat with the ECOWAS Commission Abuja and a deputy county or country chair of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, Ambassador Haruna Aliwarkani, to discuss the matters arising between the Senegal, Niger, and the ECOWAS. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, viewers.
It's good to have you. So let's talk about, this thing happening. I mean, there is, on one hand, there is this celebration of, okay, ECOWAS is about to complete 50 years, of the bloc being in existence. And we've seen the positive thing the bloc has made, for West Africa. But then, on the other hand, there's this challenging thing happening with ECOWAS that it seemed as though they are losing their grip on power, and people are a bit skeptical, if at all, in the long run there will be any need for ECOWAS. What is your take on all of this, Ambassador?
Well, thank you, viewers. It's quite unfortunate that we are having challenges at the verge of realizing the 50-year anniversary. The founding fathers of ECOWAS had very lofty ideals of what should be in line with the African Union, or what was used to be OAU's intention to have regional blocks across the whole continent of Africa, integrating themselves region by region and then gradually forming into a continental body to make up for one African government. And so it is something that is sincerely beyond just ECOWAS. It's a continental move. Over the years, 75 to now, ECOWAS has achieved a lot in so many areas of integration. However, in the areas of governance, it has proven very difficult and challenging, from the security challenges of the 90s, resulting into the formation of ECOMOG and interventions in Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, and so many other places, to what we are also witnessing today, the breakaway of some members, breakaway without even notice. They woke up to say, today we are leaving, and we are living in protest because we are no longer happy that the ideals for which the founding fathers saw is like no longer being realized. Now, it becomes very difficult when members of any community, family, or group willingly say they are no longer doing. It becomes very difficult. Now, if we look back at the communique issued by these countries who threatened to leave, you will see very important things challenging the integrity, the loss of zeal, power, focus, and perceived interference in member states' affairs were very prominent. Now, observations have been made severally that, yes, ECOWAS seems to be losing the grip, because if you are having more and more countries coming under military coups, it becomes very disturbing. And this doesn't seem to have an end, because it looks like so many other countries are potentially preparing to join such a club. Now, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, in that order, you could see all overthrew their civilian governments and instituted military governments. And once a military coup succeeds by way of installing a military government, they acquire legitimacy, whichever way you want it. They exercise sovereignty over the territory that they control. And therefore, it becomes very difficult for ECOWAS to dictate to these countries. That's why when sanctions were imposed on these countries as a result of the military coup, and then these sanctions began to bite, these countries responded by saying, look, we still remain a country with sovereignty and a military government. You either tolerate us and we talk to each other, or we block each other and it becomes another matter, which is what has resulted into the exit of these countries. And today, with 3 member countries formally exiting the community, yes, it's very worrisome, particularly at a time. And the events in Senegal is also pointing to a similar situation, because what is happening is like we are gradually getting to a point where Macky Sall, the current president, seems to be creating a dynasty for himself. He might transit 1 year extension, from 1 year to another year extension, and if care is not taken.
I mean, there is no specific date on, postponing the election. No, but Ambassador, I would want us to dissect each situation first. So let's talk about Niger before we come to Senegal political crisis.
Good.
So in Niger right now, we saw how ECOWAS, threatened with sanctions, saying there would be a lot of decision made, and we all know ECOWAS strength that comes with the trade sanctions, cutting off a lot of things to Niger. But even at that, even with the hardship that it caused for both Nigeria and Niger when it comes to the trade relationship, the military junta are still hell-bent on what they want to do. So at this point now, we're looking for the way forward, for the West African continent. So what do you think, what is the overview of the situation? What is it looking like?
Well, the sanctions, which includes the no commercial flight and trade sanctions, movement of people and the rest of them, sincerely, for Nigeria as a national interest and Niger, that is to say, reducing the crisis now to bilateral levels. Nigeria is not doing well, because we are unable as a country to disaggregate the difference between being a member of ECOWAS and now, unfortunately, being in the leadership position of ECOWAS. I think that's where the problem is. There should be a national interest of Nigeria different from the bloc interest of Nigeria in ECOWAS. It seems this position has not been appropriately desegregated to enable appropriate actions also be taken. For instance, the disconnection of electricity supply to Niger by Nigeria has and should have nothing to do with ECOWAS crisis. If ECOWAS as a bloc decides to impose sanctions on Niger, Nigeria as a neighbor to Niger should have no right to disconnect electricity supply to Niger.
But Nigeria did it based on, being a member of the ECOWAS.
Yes.
Isn't that them,
That's where the problem is.
Okay.
Electricity supply to Niger had nothing to do with ECOWAS.
Okay.
Electricity supply to Niger was and is a bilateral agreement, an international agreement between ECOWAS, between Nigeria as a country and Niger as a country, minding that when Nigeria was to build the dams at Kainji, it's on the river Niger that passes through Niger before emptying its waters into the ocean. Now, technically it means if Niger were to build another dam upstream on the same river Niger, our dam in Kainji and Jebba might probably not exist. So because of that, an understanding was reached to say, okay, we are going to build the dam and share the electricity with you.
So it was a give and take.
Not to build another dam on the river Niger. Therefore, it's a bilateral agreement. It preceded ECOWAS. And so we really don't have a right, technically and legally, to say we are disconnecting supply because there was a problem. That's why we need to segregate this from the overall ECOWAS issues that came up. Flight disruptions for now is equally almost on the same verge, because it's a bilateral air agreement between between Nigeria and Niger.
So right now it's looking like ECOWAS is using Nigeria to attack Niger.
Very, very surely. And I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs needs to sit back and look at this very carefully, because it's unthinkable that any other member country would have sacrificed its national pride, national interest for the sake of the bloc to do what Nigeria is doing. So
Ambassador, in all this that you're saying, it's not looking favorable for Nigeria and Niger. So what would the impact be, for these two countries in the long haul if situations should continue like this?
Well, Nigeria loses largely because, you see, the relationship between Nigeria and Niger transcends what people generally see. Throughout the insurgency that we've been suffering in this country, Niger had more or less acted like a buffer between the terrorists operating generally in the Sahel and Nigeria. Don't forget, we share the longest borderline with all other member countries in the sub-region: Benin, Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon. We share the longest borderline, stretching from around Kebbi right to Maiduguri, Borno State. This is the longest borderline between two member countries. Nigeria and Niger have been very friendly countries. So friendly to a point where even the alphabet brought us together such that when you go to international conferences, we are next to each other because of spelling of our names. And we have enjoyed this kind of relationship that should have been treated separately. Even if we're taking steps to assist ECOWAS to enforce sanctions, Nigeria needs to take precaution, because as we speak, you still have Nigerian refugees living in Niger as a result of Boko Haram attacks. Over 300,000 right now.
We've seen some of them return home.
Yeah, well, some have been returning home, but as a result of long stay since 2009, some have decided even to stay permanently. So there is a special relationship which should not be lost on our foreign policy position. And it's important because the flight relationship that we have with Niger is pretty special, because we enjoy a kind of privilege between the two countries. They come here, we go there. Trade has been booming between the two countries, speaking the same language, exercising cultural ties, traditions, and affinities that you cannot separate. Indeed, there is hardly a borderline between Nigeria and Niger in the north. Therefore, you have these special considerations. The Foreign Affairs Ministry, therefore, needs to sincerely segregate the national interest of the country vis-a-vis the collective interest of ECOWAS itself as a bloc. And with this, we might be able to forge forward and even seek for solutions that might be easier to do. Now, even in the context of ECOWAS itself, if Nigeria were to play a slightly different role, this crisis would have been de-escalated. But if Nigeria remains and takes steps as it is taking now, it will only enrage fears within the ruling elite in Niger, which makes it difficult. And I tell you, they are at pains to see that this is happening because the cordial, historical, and fraternal relationship that has been enjoyed between those two countries is very difficult to measure.
So if I should get what you're saying, you seem to believe that Nigeria should be the tool that ECOWAS will use in softening Niger in order to at least listen to them.
Definitely.
All right. We hope that the ECOWAS will do that. But then moving away from Niger, let's talk about Senegal now. We saw President Macky Sall, postponing elections to, we don't know the future date. And it's already causing a lot of unrest with not only the ECOWAS, but other international bodies coming out to advise him to, take caution and just remain with the same election timetable. So how do you think this is, or should I say, how do you think ECOWAS is taking all of this at the same time when there is the threats from Mali, from, I think, Chad, with all of this, and even Guinea exiting the ECOWAS bloc?
Well, it's pretty unfortunate that ECOWAS has to find itself here. Nobody expected that this is the time for exit of any member state. The first exit historically was Mauritania in the year 2000, for obvious reasons of some ethnic considerations and some other political insinuations. Now, successful or not, Mauritania left. And it left ECOWAS with 15 instead of 16 member countries. Now, the exit of the 3 members of the Alliance of Sahel States, as they call themselves today, has become more than worrisome. And it's also a pointer of what perhaps internally is happening within the ECOWAS as itself. More countries are finding it difficult to continue to appreciate the ideals of the founding fathers. And this is due to largely the result or impacts of bad governance.
From the ECOWAS, from the bloc?
No, from member states.
Okay.
Good. A lot of member states, people get elected, in quotes, into offices that remains questionable. That is to say, the vehicle for elections have remained very questionable. And because of that, you have agitations of people not enjoying the dividends of democracy. And in that regard, you see agitations. And when people protest, which is supposed to be legitimate in a democratic setting, the response by the authorities usually will be police going out to shoot people. Now, with that, you have created a scenario where it becomes legitimate for the military to perhaps intervene to save the state from itself. When that happens, ECOWAS says you have violated the protocols of good governance and democracy. And for that reason, you need to have sanctions imposed on such a country. You cannot recognize a military ruler to sit within the ECOWAS confines of meetings. And these sanctions normally bite. These sanctions too bite the poor more than the ruling elites. Indeed. And so in most cases, the rulers will be up there. Yes, they see, they hear, but they don't feel. Citizens feel these sanctions more. And for them, they are not even part of it. They are also victims of misgovernance. And so you see, it's a complex setting that ECOWAS needs to sit back and look at it again second time, this time, to say, okay, perhaps there should be a different approach to all this. And what we are seeing evolving in Senegal is clear sign of creating a dynasty, a monarchy evolving. One day we might have King Macky Sall, with all due respect. This is what happened in Cameroon. You have someone ruling for 40 years. This was what happened in Gabon until the military were able to remove the Bongo families. This is what is happening in Togo. You have the Nasimbe, the Adema family, having been in control of the country since independence, except the brief interregnum of Olympio. You have events like this in so many countries, such that normally politicians will come and tell you elections have been postponed. Create reasons why these elections are postponed. Most times, they would have bought over the parliament, like we can see what is happening in Senegal. Members who objected to the postponement of elections and extension of tenure were forcibly removed from the parliament.
And let's not forget the cut from telecommunication, where nobody was able to make.
Well, of course, normally, as state actors, they have access to so many things, instruments of power. They exercise it ruthlessly because there was no reason for police, the gendarmerie, to enter the parliament and forcibly remove people because they disagreed with the government.
Indeed, Ambassador. Ambassador, with all of this happening now, that is the question. West Africa seems to be suffering a lot, you know, from all of this, from the citizens, and also ECOWAS is deep into this confusion of what to do. So you have been with these people, you know how these things work. What do you think is the best solution in order to avert all of this happening at the same time for West Africa?
Well, it should have been a stronger ECOWAS, a more proactive ECOWAS, not only be seen.
How so? How can they be proactive?
Okay. If you take the issues in Senegal today, the statement issued by ECOWAS is like concern and encourages, mark the word, encourages the country to return to constitutionalism. That's not enough. This should be the time that ECOWAS should instantly convene an extraordinary meeting, specifically on such a country only, for violating the protocol provisions on democracy and good governance. Because it's a clear case of, here is someone who, because he is your member, head of state of a member country, has decided through the back door to extend his tenure by about a year. Because what the parliament has given is like, okay, elections can be extended by 1 year, which means his tenure is already extended by 1 year. ECOWAS should not simply pass a resolution. This is a time for real action. Go into that country and ask the Mr. President in a meeting and tell him in clear terms. It's more than just resolution or observation or encouragement or whatever. No. This is the time to correct such a thing. And let the citizens of West Africa also see that, yes, ECOWAS is doing something practical. Rather than wait until this situation degenerates by constant protest on the streets of the country. And in that regard, lives will be lost. Ultimately, the military might not sit back and watch all these things happen without taking any action. And when they take action, it means the civilian government will be removed and replaced by a military government. When that happens, you impose sanctions on the country. And like I said earlier, sanctions don't work for the rulers. Sanctions affect the poor. Now, we can engage more in preventive diplomacy than the curative approaches that normally follows. Once you have a military government, it becomes much more difficult because you can't even talk to that military government. They are not willing to listen.
Exactly. Talking to them and not willing to listen. Ambassador, we saw how the back and forth has been going on between the ECOWAS and Niger. And you know, other member country exiting the bloc also are affected, and they say they feel not represented. So even with this meeting that was done yesterday in the Federal Capital Territory, also there was no representation from the other ones that threatened to exit, Burkina Faso, Mali, and the rest. But we saw someone from Senegal representing in that meeting. But don't you think that it's because the members are seeing that the ECOWAS are not really doing much in terms of the military ruled country, and that is why Macky Sall, is bringing this rebelliousness, because he knew this reaction, of course, will emanate from the bloc. Yeah. So don't you think that the grip of the bloc, it's falling, it's failing because of how they see the way they handle other states that have, brought or show rebellious behaviors?
In fact, Senegal will be like, let me say, a political laboratory for ECOWAS and its citizens. Because now, how ECOWAS precisely handles Senegal's case will tell whether it is a fair and just organization or otherwise. Now, coups are not necessarily military. Coups can also be civilian, which is what we are witnessing now. Right now, the provisions of the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance has been impinged upon by Senegal, which means there was a civilian coup in Senegal. Because for anybody to extend the tenure, which is constitutionally provided for, means there has been a civilian coup. Now, with a civilian coup, ECOWAS should not have welcomed the delegation from Senegal, because automatically it means Senegal too should be on sanctions. Senegal should be barred from ECOWAS meetings. Let it be made to sink that, Mr. President, you have done it, you've done it wrongly, and we will not tolerate this. Otherwise, the three brothers, Niger, Burkina, and Mali, will find justification to say, hey, we told you ECOWAS is unfair. ECOWAS is unjust. That's why today there is a civilian coup in Senegal, and they are still meeting a delegation of that country. That is very difficult for ECOWAS to handle, I know, but ECOWAS needs to think and act differently.
But experts are suggesting that it's too quick, for them to sanction Senegal, considering, the decision was made just recently. I mean, we saw how before they even sanctioned Niger, it took a bit of time negotiating with them. But then, Ambassador, do you think right now the ECOWAS needs to retract, backtrack and go back to the negotiation table with the military-ruled countries before they decide to deal with the Senegal situation?
Well, very well. Very, very well. There are two layers, even more, in diplomacy. The open and the covert. Covertly, ECOWAS should be talking to the military rulers.
Are they willing to do?
No, well, they may not be willing to do.
No, I meant the juntas.
Oh yes, the junta will be willing to talk covertly. Most times, in the context of diplomacy, what is discussed, how it is discussed, and by whom might not necessarily need to be known. What is paramount is the result. The military rulers in this country surely and normally feel ostracized. They normally feel a need to belong. They will normally feel a need to do certain things differently. But to come out openly also and say, we are sorry or something, it becomes a problem. So in conflict resolutions, ordinarily there should have been subterranean diplomatic moves, which will include the use of the offices of the wise, the Council of the Wise, which ECOWAS has as a text, and then unofficial means of access to these people. They must have friends, they must have good ties with some people and some countries, including countries that are outside of the sub-region. quietly behind the scene, some of these things can be done. Look, we remain a family. The threat of the use of military, for instance, the invasion of Niger, was wrong, very, very wrong. You could use it as a threat, but to go to the extent of maybe taking a decision by the military rulers, I mean, and the military chiefs, that is to say the only thing that was not known that time was the date of the invasion.
When it would happen.
Good, but almost everything was done as to say, tomorrow we are likely going to invade this country. Now, the ECOWAS standby force, which is supposed to be a rapid response mechanism to attend to matters like this, should have been activated, not against member countries who have internal problems, but should be between member countries, should there be any conflagration or issues of maybe territorial integrity being questioned or something. That's when the standby force supposedly should be used. Now, in situations like this, Senegal, for instance, should know that the current happenings is not acceptable. The parliament has gone against itself. The parliament has gone against the government and people, because Macky Sall has succeeded in literally pocketing this parliament. And that is where now ECOWAS proactive action needs to be taken now, not too many meetings, resolutions, no. Before you know it, Macky Sall would have consolidated his position with a walk-away 1-year tenure. And before you know it, the parliament, those who have been identified now to be against him, would have been removed, would be punished or ostracized, disregarded, and you see a totally divided parliament that can no longer work. The remaining members who are with him would be reinforced by way of inducements and what have you, and then before you know it, you have a kind of unitary system that there are no checks and balances. And once that happens, you have cleared the coast for Macky Sall to declare himself a monarch, and you now have a dynasty instead of a statutory republic.
It's a really dire situation here on this matter. And honestly, we don't envy ECOWAS. But then, Ambassador, quick one. On the long run, do you see ECOWAS overcoming these hurdles?
We remain optimistic that ECOWAS could overcome this. But it requires also proactive thinking and action. Proactive thinking in the sense that what used to be like solutions are no longer applying this time around, and therefore there has to be new rejigging of all the steps that are normally taken in such circumstances. Because now, you see, the situation in Guinea is as a result of tenure extension. Good. Alpha Condé, from all and nooks and crannies of the country, so clearly that his tenure has ended. He refused to go. And protests erupted. The military came out, quelled the riots, killed some people, and the citizens said, no, this cannot continue. The riots continued, and then the military came and took him out and then installed themselves. Now, fears are that a country like Guinea might join the alliance of Sahel states, making it 4. Togo is boiling. Togo has receded into a dynasty, no longer political. ECOWAS is not doing anything. Benin might be quiet, but there are simmering concerns in the country as well.
So with all of this, you know, there is more scare to this situation. So it boils back to what you said from the beginning, good governance.
Yes.
Our leaders need to remove greed and just do their best, put their people first, civilians and all that, in order to make sure that the people are okay. When the people are okay, of course, there won't be the military upturn. Well, we hope that we see positive results in the future that would favor every member of ECOWAS and the citizens in general. Thank you so much, Ambassador Haruna Ali Warkani, retired diplomat with the ECOWAS Commission, Abuja, and a deputy country chair of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Thank you, viewers, and thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, with that, we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the show by bringing you the headlines again. Stay with us. Welcome back to Daybreak. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you've missed the first hour, then you can catch us via our social media platform and our YouTube live stream for more news programs and documentaries. Now, moving on to the headlines that we have put for you at this hour. It says ministers meet over Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso's exit. Taraba abduction, kidnappers nabbed while trying to pick ransom in Taraba State. And Kanye West announces Lagos tour. That's a big one. Now the details. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS Commission, on Thursday convened an extraordinary session of its Mediation and Security Council at the ministerial level over the decision of Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Niger Republic to leave the community. The session also discussed the current political situation in Senegal, where President Macky Sall postponed the presidential election earlier scheduled for late February 2024. 3 member states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, had announced their withdrawal from ECOWAS with immediate effect through a joint communique signed by representatives of all 3 countries on 28 January 2024. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the session, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Aliou Traoré, said these claims have no real basis, adding that the hasty decisions to withdraw from membership of ECOWAS did not take into account the conditions for withdrawal of membership from ECOWAS as espoused in the 1993 ECOWAS revised treaty. He also lamented that the 3 member states have not reflected on the implications of this decision on the citizens. While speaking about the situation in Senegal, he noted that the National Assembly's resolution, which fixed the presidential election for 15th December 2024 and also extended the tenure of President Sall, had endangered crisis in the country and the sub-region. Away from that, we have troops from 93 Battalion on the 6th Brigade of the Nigerian Army have arrested a suspected female kidnapper while trying to pick ransom for an abducted victim in Taraba. They also apprehended a notorious gun runner dealing in arms and ammunition and supplying them to criminals within Taraba State and other parts of the country. The female suspect, it was learned, was married to a notorious criminal who is a second in command to late Hannah Terwasi. Spokesperson of the brigade, Lieutenant Oni Olubodunde, said the troops working on credible intelligence on the activities of the arms dealer arrested the suspect Joshua Dutse Ida, 45. He further explained that the troops had trailed the suspect, leading to his arrest in the Ibi, town of Ibi local government area of the state, while he was driving to Kaduna in a blue Volkswagen Sharon vehicle with registration number Rivers SKN 390AA. Lieutenant Olubodunde explained that on interrogation, Dutse confessed that he was going to Katsina State to bring AK-47 rifles, for which he received a part payment of 300,000 naira. The army spokesperson also disclosed that a female suspected kidnapper named Janet Igohia 31 was arrested after picking up the sum of 1.5 million naira being ransom payment for an abducted victim at Chanchangi area in Takom local government area of the state. I mean, that's a really good news there. Moving on to Lagos State, Lagos has been added to the list of nations that renowned American rapper Kanye West plans to perform in 2024 and 2025. According to Entertainment News, the musician revealed the news on Wednesday in a post on his official Instagram story. The touring roster for West's collaborative album Vultures, which he is releasing in 3 installments, was revealed by TY Dollar Sign. The post included information about December 14, 2024 at Eco Energy City, Lagos, Nigeria, and December 7, 2024 at Nyayo International Stadium in Nairobi, Kenya. Kanye West will be playing in Lagos for the second time. The first time was at the 2007 Star Mega Jam. On June 22, 2024, West will go on his world tour in Toronto, Canada. From there, he will travel throughout the U.S. until August, when he will stop in Mexico, Spain, Egypt, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. Kanye West will next travel from Nigeria to Australia in January 2024, finishing the tour in Japan in February. I mean, it's all about Afrobeat and Amapiano. They felt the beat, so definitely they would come back to the country. Now, moving on to the packages that we have for you. Amidst the mounting economic hardship in the country, the Arewa Initiative for the Defense and Promotion of Democracy has appealed to Nigerians to refrain from any protest. The group made the appeal after a review of recent developments in the country amidst the surge in the cost of living. Habibat Ajayi reports.
As dissatisfaction brews over the escalating cost of living fueled by fuel subsidy removal and the devaluation of naira, protests erupted in some parts of the nation. These protests may believe, if not arrested, through deliberate policies aimed at easing the cost of living, may degenerate into chaos. It is in response to the above that a coalition of pro-democracy groups is imploring Nigerians to refrain from further demonstrations, asserting that the federal government is actively working to alleviate the economic burden on Nigerians.
We have no any other country than Nigeria. We don't want to tear Nigeria in pieces. We are not holding brief for the government. But what we are saying is we are advising the government to come strongly into the situations and relieve the present challenges in the nations.
While acknowledging the effort of the federal government, the group is calling for an enhanced strategy to address the underlying causes of the economic downturn.
We are telling the president to kindly go to him by himself to monitor the repairs of the refineries in Warri, Port Harcourt, and Kaduna, because that is the grassroots of the problems of the oil in Nigeria.
Despite prevailing challenges, Nigerians are encouraged to maintain hope and rally behind the current administration in its quest for transformative national progress. Habibat Ajayi, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Zulum has distributed 100 million naira food and wrappers to women and widows in Damasak of Mobile Local Government Council. The governor also distributed food palliatives to over 3,000 returnees from Niger Republic. Trust TV's Beatrice Kurutsi tells us more.
More than 20,000 of the women comprising widows, housewives and IDPs benefited from the 100 million naira cash and wrappers shared in Damasak community. The governor also visited Government Secondary School Damasak and Zanna Umarti Primary School for assessment, where he approved 10 units of housing estates for teachers and 50,000 naira cash support. He also directed the biometric data capture of civil servants in the state, stressing that the exercise should be concluded before the end of February.
I recently commented, providing others palliative to the parents. Women will identify 2 police stations. They'll bring PMF and subsidize the cost of homes to the farmers so that they'll buy petrol, then use it. So that they also irrigate the farmers. This is one. The second issue is that government will also procure solar water plants. In addition to this, we'll also install drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation systems in this country. Why not? We have some initiatives to support the economy. We are also discussing with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture food security under tinubu can see how we should push him into the fashion, especially the
Meanwhile, the governor also distributed food palliatives to 3,847 returnees from Niger Republic. Governor Zulum said he has remained committed to improving the quality of lives of the citizens. Bitrus Kuruti, Trust TV News, Maiduguri.
The residents of Yanagwa, the Bayelsa state capital, are lamenting over the indiscriminate bush burning in the state capital. They said burning of bushes during the Harmattan is giving them discomfort, like difficulty in breathing, sight, changing of the atmosphere, and even causes fire outbreak. Friday, Mobowe Peters report.
Stakeholders in Bayelsa State call on residents to stop bush burning for the safety of the people.
Everybody is crying. As I'm talking to you now, I'm feeling the pepperish situation in my nose, and my eyes are also running water. But now you might not be able to see it. To speak now, we have stepped into February. The Harmattan has finally surfaced. So we want to plead with our dwellers, those who are residing in Bayelsa State and beyond, that burning of bush is not really too good. There are so many dangers that impose. Those of us who are living should try to leave the bush burning and see how we can help ourselves, because when this bush burning keep coming, the smoke that we inhale is a threat to our lungs, it's a threat to our health, and it's a threat to the society.
The people where we get as Bayelsans to understand that if you burn bush for night, for especially this Harmattan period, and you know they're there to monitor the bush, fire outbreak they happen. And when the fire outbreak happen, they'll come to blame devil. So once they burn bush, they try to contract everybody to the inside smoke. Now they make sometimes you go wake up early morning, you know the see person. The fog date once the weather don't clear, breeze go come they blow the fog then out. If not, if you wake up around 4 in the morning, you can't look outside, you need to see anywhere because of the people they burn bush for night.
Some residents said people ignorantly set fire indiscriminately without considering the health, economic, and agricultural implications. They call on the government to go on a massive sensitization to stop bush burning.
When you now burn bush, the atmosphere is polluted, and you can see the magnitude of pollution that's ongoing. Because if you burn a piece of land in Agodama, it will definitely get a place like a Keki and dam in Ahua. Why? Because there are no boundaries in the atmosphere. So when a pollution is taking place, when atmospheric pollution is taking place, it becomes very massive, but it's spread like a wildfire. So it is very unfortunate where we find ourselves that bush burning has become something that is now almost becoming a norm every dry season. And we are becoming victims to respiratory diseases, we are becoming victims to fogginess, we are becoming victims to dizziness. In fact, a lot of this goes wrong because more particularly the respiratory aspect of it. People are being choked. The quality of the air is being reduced for human consumption and animals. So it has health implications, it has agricultural implications, and it has economic implications. So it's certain that people are indulging in bush burning indiscriminately.
Premises of some companies are exposed to indiscriminate bush burning within the state. From Yanagwa, Friday, Mobowe Peter, Trust TV News, Yanagwa.
The victory of the Super Eagles against the Bafana Bafana of South Africa has continued to generate reactions amongst Nigerians both home and abroad. In Imo State, southeastern Nigeria, the residents are saying the victory is a source of joy, which has in no small measure availed them some sort of relief from the numerous challenges that they are faced with. Trust TV's Ajibade Praise tells us more.
It is no doubt that football has a way of uniting Nigerians, especially when the country's national team is playing. The victory against South Africa is one of such moments, and every citizen of the country are glad over the outcome. According to them, the victory gave them a reason to rejoice despite the present predicament they face as a result of economic hardship in the country.
But I know that with the squad Nigeria have put in place, especially from our defense and the front, that's that of Osime, Simon and Lukman, and I believe that Nigeria will put up a surprise. So I'm optimistic, very, very optimistic that Nigeria will win.
It was an awesome victory yesterday. Though the first half we had somehow discouraged because our midfielder was somehow porous. But in the second half, when the coach did some substitution and we get back into the game, and the game went very well.
Speaking further, they expressed confidence that Nigeria will lift the trophy while urging the team to continue with the spirit of patriotism and unity.
They should be focused. I want them to be focused. It is not yet over until they lay their hands on that trophy. Until William Truss Ekon or Ahmed Musa lift that trophy. Until they shouldn't relax. They don't take they shouldn't underrate the Ivorians.
Yes, Nigeria will win because Côte d'Ivoire is not a threat to Nigeria. We have done it before and we're still going to do it again.
And my advice is that they've been playing the game as a team. They should continue in that unity. Whoever that score, the glory comes back to Nigeria. Let them work as a team and ensure that they come back with the trophy.
While they await the finals on Sunday, when Nigeria will face Ivory Coast, the host country, the people are hopeful that the Super Eagles will again give them yet another bigger reasons to smile. At Jibadi Praise, Trust TV News, Owerri.
And with that, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it will be time to take a look at the front pages of the national dailies. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. This is the newspaper review segment. And as usual, we'll start with the Daily Trust newspaper front page. The major story here says, Imams, bishops to government provide food security to poor at grassroots. Riders here saying fresh protest in Kano, Labour issues strike ultimatum. Niger government apologizes over arrest of protesting women. Nigerians' resilience being tested. That's according to Speaker. And Tinubu orders release of grains. You'll find all the story on page 4 and 25 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now below that, there's a pictorial of markets, and it says traders at Nyanya market in Abuja yesterday. I mean, there's a lot of grains and even vegetables, but then Nyanya market is known for being popular, you know, always filled up, but it's less scanty, I mean, with the prices and all that being hiked. Below the headmaster, there we have court orders a psychiatric evaluation of suspected killer of ex-boyfriend. You find that on page 16. War on Gaza, 26,751 Palestinians killed in 118 days. That's according to the envoy. A sad situation there. Now, these are some of the stories that you can find on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Moving on to the Punch newspaper, from the top of the page there, it says banks' dollar sale falls as Naira weakens to 1,479 Naira per dollar. Government orders 100,000 metric tons of grains released and warns others. I mean, finally, the government are warning people, you know, this hurdles is really affecting us all. Foreign airlines fear like $200 million loss over Naira depreciation. The lead story here is saying 14-day strike notice. The federal government, Labour differ on aborted peace deal. Be patient. Nigeria cannot afford strike this time. Minister begs Labour and seeks cooperation. Hunger, insecurity wrecking Nigeria. NLC TUC laments and says 14-day notice begins today. You find this major story on page 2. Below that, there's a pictorial of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, showing the plans of 2,000 houses in 12 states by December. APC stalwart Ojuogbo, 3 others die watching Super Eagles and South Africa penalties. You find that on page 4 and 5. A sad situation there. Motorists seek extension of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway street lights. And federal government multi-choice agree to $35 million tax settlement. Now, these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. Moving on to the Nigerian Tribune. Major story, hardship. The federal government orders release of 102,000 metric tons of rice, maize, gari, millet. Ekiti government distributes 10,000 bags of maize to livestock farmers, and Kano Anti-Corruption Agency threatens warehouses and stores hoarding food items. You find that on page 5 and 28. Below that, we'll see what a woman brings to the table is unquantifiable. That's according to Pastor Temitope Olagbegi. Feminists would definitely appreciate that one. We see a detach of army personnel shortly after their arrival in Ado Ekiti on Thursday. That's the pictorial there explaining the situation. Ekiti federal government deploys special military troop. Soldiers exchange gunfire with kidnappers in forest and arrest one. How threat to food security in Africa can be tackled. That's according to EU, AU, and experts. 14 abducted passengers of 2 buses in Kogi regain freedom. Cairo Ojuogbo, Abidjan businessman who and 2 others die while watching Nigerian South African match. Address inflation, poverty, insecurity, food crisis. JNI tells Tinubu and the government. Want those arrested during protest release, and Niger orders release of 25 protesters of economic hardship. Now, from the top of the Tribune front page, it says Reps Speaker gives Nigerians fresh hope in hardship insecurity. NLCTUC issues 14-day ultimatum to federal government to implement agreement. These are some of the stories on the Nigerian Tribune this morning. All right, let's move to the leadership newspaper today. From the top there, AFCON, avoid watching football if hypertensive. Doctors warn. I mean, I'm not hypertensive, but I did not even watch it just to not give myself a headache. So it's a really sad situation for those who, the families of those who lost their life through this. Abducted Abuja-bound passengers released. That's according to police. The major story here says hardship. Tinubu governors, reps attempt solutions. Riders are saying President orders release of 102,000 of grains to crush food crisis, and we will keep executive on their toes, Abbas tells Nigerians. Caught in forex demand, food imports inevitable. That's according to NGF, and labor issues a fresh ultimatum. Now, these are some of the stories that you can find on the leadership newspaper this morning. Let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. From the top there, it says PH refinery to begin operations as Shell supplies 475,000 barrels of oil. Protest, the federal government mulls food imports if hunger persists. Others release of, about 102,000 metric tons of rice and maize, and threatens hoarders of foodstuffs. Edo Guba, 16 parties notify INEC of primary elections. Major story, education with tears, hardship creating more indigent students as students attend classes hungry. Students dropping out will exacerbate insecurity. That's according to ASU and NAPTIAN. And situation pathetic. That's according to NANS. We are taking steps to make life better. That's the federal government making promises there. Below that, we see the AFCON semis, of the people that we have lost due to hypertension of that situation. NLCTUC also, it's been written in all the front pages of the national dailies. Now, these are some of the paper you can find on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And yes, let's take a look at the nation before we head on to our review. Odrogbo Varsity Bossa, NYC member businessman, died during the Eagles and Bafana AFCON clash. Issues in power sector complicated, says Minister. APM terminals to invest $500 million in Apapa port. Labor issues 14-day ultimatum. No plan to raise petrol price, says NNPCL. more troops in Ekiti, to fight the insurgency, the insecurity happening there. At the moment, a major story, food crisis, hardship. The federal government states launched emergency action and tinubu directs release of grains to cushion the effects, and governors move to save naira and end insecurity. We hope that works out. House will stand with Nigerians, Abbas pledges. Investors buy into Nigeria's economic reforms and why social media should be regulated. I don't think social media is our main issue right now. That's the only way Nigerians can voice out their grievances from the government. Well, there's the stories that we can take on the Nation newspaper. And right now, of course, we will head on to a review the front pages of the national dailies. As usual, every Friday, we have Malam Nuruddin Abdallah, the editor of 21st Century Chronicles. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Okay. All right, Malam Nuruddin, let's start with what is Hausa people say, what is really disturbing Nigerians at the moment, which is provide food and insecurity to the poor that imams and bishop has called on. And a lot of people are already crying. You know, the hardship keep increasing. 1 minute you go to the market and you buy something for as low as, not as much as, say, 70,000. And the next day, the increase is huge. And you go there and then someone will tell you you're buying it for 72 or 75,000. So right now, the federal government are saying the hoarders should beware of what they are doing. But do you think, that we are also adding to our own suffering as Nigerians?
I don't think so, because blaming traders, market women, or businessmen for the rising inflation is not a solution. Or even, excuse me, the planned rate of some warehouses, like what the current state government is mulling now, I don't think can help the situation. As much as the decision by the government in Niger State, banning traders, commodity traders from buying foodstuff in all the Niger local government areas, I think that is a recipe to anarchy. Niger geographically lies between the north and the south. Turks carry food items from this part of the country to the southern part in particular, Lagos, some part of Kwara State and what have you. With the video I saw of Governor Omar Bago yesterday, giving that order, it means that any available vehicle passing through the state can be attacked. So I think in as much as the problem is biting, almost no Nigerian is immune, from the high cost of living, the palpable uncertainty, and what have you. So drastic long-term measures should be implemented. Not this cosmetic approach to issues. The president is saying that he has directed the release of food from the federal government silos. Do they have food in those silos? I hope the president is not repeating what the then President Buhari did. Buhari faced the same issue, I think 2017 or so. And there was the presidential communications directing the relevant authorities to open the silos and give food to people. 24 hours later, the president was shocked that the silos were empty. I remember some years back we did a couple of stories that the silos were even leased out to individuals from Kaduna to Abuja. I don't know what the situation now. There are, I think, 2 silos. There was silos along that area. Are they filled with food? I don't think so. So, blaming traders. Trader is not a Father Christmas. Many traders are being pushed out of business.
Sure.
Take the automobile industry, for instance. People that go to Cotonou, what have you. I had a discussion with a friend. He said, if you go to Cotonou and buy a vehicle now, you come here, you sell it after 2 weeks or so. The money you expended on the purchase of the vehicle, the revenue from the Benin, Niger to Lagos, and even the net profit, if you pack it all, if you go back, it's not enough to buy the same vehicle you bought a fortnight ago. That is the situation. So, government, and we should look at the root cause. Removal of the subsidy.
I mean, it's becoming so alarming. I mean, you mentioned Mali and Burkina Faso and others, and it brings me back to this next question of governance, because that is what has been shaking the West African countries' leadership, the good governance that we push for. So right now, the speaker is coming out to say, oh, we are with Nigerians. You know, we feel your pain. We are all about supporting you. When Nigerians feel like the leaders are not really with them. So do you think this changes something, you know, a bit of hope for Nigerians to say, okay, yes, someone is with us at least, so someone can actually speak on our behalf?
That is the recurring problem. The leaders should go beyond rhetorics. That's cheap talk. What Nigerians need is to see inflation coming down, for their purchasing power to improve. Unfortunately, you know, the country is gradually moving to a Zimbabwe during the Robert Mugabe era. You have money, go to the shop, what you'll buy, very insignificant, or to even face an empty shelf, because the traders are moving out. Locally, don't even talk about the foreign rice, which is getting to about 100,000 now. In some places, it's 80-something thousand. In northern Nigeria, not even in the south, which is higher. The local rice in the villages, the local major, what they call in Hausa Mudu, is about 2,000 naira, local rice, at the time of harvest.
That is really scary.
So, that is the situation. And we should look at what actually triggered this. Yes, some filling stations are not even dispensing fuel. Major marketers are at loggerheads with NNPC. Trading blames, threatening to shut down filling stations.
And we've seen the NNPC come out to say there would not be any increase.
So that is it. We should go beyond talk. Nigerians want to see reality on ground. You understand? Then, yeah, the president did something, you know. At the local planky, the fuel subsidy removal has triggered certain actions. At the other hand, the forex regime, yes, the CBN is trying. The unification of the dollar regime is a very commendable effort.
Would you say there's been a progress, you know, since Cardoso took office in CBN?
Yeah, to a certain extent. She has cleared the backlog.
But we're still stuck.
But still, politicians are still stealing money. That's the reality. They are stealing money, hoarding the dollar in their backyards, I want to feel. And that is why, you know, we have this issue. What tinubu did actually was very commendable, yeah, to be fair to him. He changed what he made on ground, what the Buhari government did. Giving list of people to CBNs under MFLA to be, you're sitting here, you'll be out, without doing anything. You will receive a call, yeah, you are this, Mrs. This, yes. You have been awarded $500,000. A bank, a commercial bank will call you. Okay, they will give you the balance. You are awarded at 420,000 naira and 20 naira for instance, and you sell it at 800. They will just transfer the balance to your account. tinubu cancelled that. Commendable. But I think a lot needs to be done in that regard. Because you close this, the same people open other apertures.
Another ways. I mean, Nigerians are not for that smart ways.
I think we should go beyond textbook economics.
All right. So one thing for sure is holding these people accountable for their words beyond the word you mentioned. It's not just about saying it, but doing it. Well, NLC and TUC are known to, push to make sure that all the promises have been kept. So right now they're threatening to go on strike. I mean, but they've given 14-day ultimatum starting today. And yes, would agree with the presidency. Nigeria is not in a state where they need to be strike right now. It wouldn't look good for the economy. But then for the federal government to come out and say that, does that mean they don't need, there is no plan of, making decisions between this 14-day lapse?
That is what I don't expect this administration to do. If you check, contextualize Buhari's tenure, there are a lot of this. They tackle problems with cosmetic political solutions. Not only NLC that is threatening to go on strike in the next 2 weeks. ASU is equally mobilizing. If ASU call for a strike, NLC go for a strike now, I'm afraid that we will have a repeat of the NSAS protest. When Buhari removed subsidy, I remember, NLC under Waba came up Abuja Street. They were chased away by Nigerians who were supporting Buhari at that time. But before he left office, that has changed drastically. President Tinubu should not repeat the Buhari mistakes. If you have an agreement with Union XYZ, ensure that you fulfill it. If you cannot fulfill it, call them. I promise to give you 1 billion naira. But these are the realities on ground. They are humans, they are Nigerians, they are educated. Look at the fuel prices.
Do you think the government is not taking this labor union seriously at this point?
I think that is it, particularly with the Buhari regime. Nigeria kicked out labor and adopted Buhari at the beginning, only to regret it much later. Take for instance, he promised to pay 4 months of the ASU withheld salary. Out of the 8 months, he promised to pay 4 months. Up to now, no dime has been paid. Not to talk of the agreement reached that ASU withdrew from that 8 months. Look at the 35%, the 35,000 naira palliative or whatever you call it. He only paid 2 months. I'm not talking about other clauses he signed with the TUC NLC. He shouldn't tread that part. It's very dangerous. If you have an agreement with NLC, TUC, ASU, and along the way you realize that the prices of the crude is falling, that's our major way of making money, call them. They are humans.
Come back
and you cut other expenses. You can't say you cannot pay NLC this, whereas you are channeling billions into other some spurious programs and what have you. And that is the only way of getting the confidence of Nigeria. This government is less than 1 year in office. But the signals are not positive. We had a protest in Niger. One aggressive police commissioner arrested
the women there.
25 hungry women.
And let's not forget also the hardship that ASU made mention is creating for students also, where students are going to school without eating in hunger, and then right now some are threatening to leave school.
Do you know how many students drop out because of the deregulation of the education sector by Buhari? When after the 8 months of ASU strike, the council, what do they call it, of the VCs made, okay, they agree in principle without any public communication that they should increase school fees. That is why there are universities that are charging as much as 500,000 500,000.
In Nigeria, this is really scary, Malam Nuruddin, and it takes us back to why Nigerians are going out, you know, to the Benin Republic and all that to seek for education, which has also caused another controversy, which is really sad. But quickly, I want to hear your thoughts on, you know, the AFCON that happened, of the situation. You know, people are saying it's a bit of distraction for what is going on in the country, and also, you know, the lives that we lost in the AFCON due to, you know, the pressure that they were faced.
You know, I'm not a football fan, but it was a temporary relief.
Indeed.
You know, many Nigerians took solace on the game, you know, to move away from the realities on ground. The high cost of living, transportation, drugs. A paracetamol now is almost 200. Indeed. Where you'll even get it, if you're lucky to get it. One card, which used to be 35 naira, particularly now 200. If you are lucky to get it, you understand. So the AFCON, we hope that Nigeria wins by Sunday when they meet with the Cote d'Ivoire, with the host country. So that at least maybe for a week or so we will celebrate. Then we will go back to maybe, and I hope that the presidency, the governors will utilize this small window
to
do their homework. By the time we are back from AFCON, the price of rice will have gone down.
That would be great, it would be great. I mean, considering we saw how it brought unity.
Yes,
you know, I haven't seen the whole your Yoruba, your Hausa, on the social media platform. So that is something. I mean, we need to start there and hope that it continues.
And maybe I hope that there won't be these penalties that cost the life of many Nigerians.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you so much, Malam Nuruddin Abdallah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle, for joining us this morning to review the front pages. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And of course, viewers, that is the most that we can take on the show Daybreak on Trust Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. Please do stick around. At the top of the hour, Emmanuel Fashemi will bring you 360 Sport. I am Sumaya Abubakar. To have a lovely day.